based around and with facts that the black woman is God. Just listen.
The female body, on a worldwide consideration, retains the characteristics of youth much longer than does the male body. Are you getting the picture? Less or fewer women have hardening of the arteries than men, the incidence of ulcers in men, and again, most of the deterioration and the signs of age show less in the female body than they do in the male body. Told you I was going to prove a point. There's more heart failure and apoplexy in men than there is in women. Women can usually hold their breath without deterioration of cell structure deprived of oxygen, and much more less suffocated than men. And women can usually endure cold weather on a general basis better than men and can adjust to heat temperatures when their thermostat works correctly more so than men. Are you beginning to see the picture of the proof of what my opening statement was? How many of you are still with me? Confusion and puzzlement. Oh, good. Women in general at higher altitudes, like in the Andes Mountains and so, can usually carry heavier loads than men because the muscle fiber is toned better and the amount of oxygen within the cell structures is greater than that of men. The female brain not only has a finer texture and more complex organization than that of the male, but relative to overall body weight, it is 1/4 pound heavier. There are fewer female baby miscarriages than there are male baby miscarriages. And during childhood, the female is mentally superior to male because the girl of 7, usually because of the rich thyroid hormones, has a brain capacity and a body capacity that dwarfs a boy in both mind and body. They're usually taller, more symmetric, and have better brain cohesion and function than does the boy. So now you understand that I have hopefully proven to you my opening statement. Is there anybody now that disagrees with anything that I said? I didn't think you women would. And I know the fellas have just said, what in the world has gone on with that nut up there? Bear with me, okay? Menstruating women in general lose calcium, thyroxine, iodine, phosphorus, lecithin, vitamin E, vitamin B1, 6, 12, 2, 6, magnesium, manganese, iron, copper, zinc, and sometimes for some women this starts 2 weeks prior to the menses. You think about that. Calcium, for instance, stabilizes the nervous system. Phosphorus is found in all healthy, normal cells. Iodine causes the growth and maintenance of the thyroid gland, and this is why the thyroid gland in women tends to swell during menstruation. I give you another key so you don't run off and spend all your money at the doctor's. I repeat that. That's why the thyroid gland in women tends to swell during menstruation. Science has proven that the birth of congenital idiots increases when one travels inland where the soil and the food lacks iodine. Iodine is also an essential element for the maturation and maintenance of healthy female cells. What is very interesting is that not all women on this planet menstruate. Also, not all women on this planet have ever menstruated. But all women think that all women do. Let me also spend a little time with that concept. Most Hindu women do not and definitely did not menstruate. One of the last famous Hindu women to achieve prominence on a world stage was Indira Gandhi, who, until she started doing certain things and making certain practices as she toured the world, readily admitted she had not suffered a menstrual period until she began to do these things. Had she but followed her religious undertakings, maybe it never would have started. Most ancient African or Kemetic women did not menstruate. Not Belkis, not Hypatia, not any of the so-called queens of Africa seemingly did once they began to have knowledge of self. The Oracle of the Delphi, according to the Greeks, were a group of women who pontificated and led Greece through its heyday. It was not led by the warrior men. They did the fighting. The thinking was done by the oracles, and many of the oracles were females. They are said that the oracles did not menstruate. We hear a lot of talk about the Amazon women, the Teutonic women, the female Gauls, the West African Watetas, the East African Bossamans, the Andambis of the Congo. Most of these oceanic women and most of these Kemetic women did not menstruate. These women were the strong women of our history. And in many cases, they could grow to be 7 and 8 feet tall. That's why amongst the Watusi and the Watusi women, when they told you of their diets and things that used to be different, they have some of the most tall, or the tallest women and persons, in fact, on earth itself. The Old Testament said, and the ancient Hebrews said, that menstruation was unclean, and that a woman should be confined until cleansed of her issue. But understand again, a lot of that book was tampered with by a patriarchal society, and if you're not aware of that, and I think most of you should be, then we have a lot of interaction that we could go through. With the advent of monogamy, and now I'm thinking about Africa, monogamy, by what we would call the Christian forefathers who wanted their church to really flourish, came the taught, learned sensation that menstruation was correct, menstruation was necessary, and was the woman's paying for her sins for having made Adam eat the apple, and now must also bear her child in pain and affliction. And many of you bought that, didn't you? I state to you that menstruation is not a cleansing process. It is only the result of the deterioration of the egg, unfertilized, and that men have perpetuated a myth that women collectively have bought, and I can at least begin to forgive some African Kemetic women because they didn't have too much of a choice. In their old habitats, in their old lands, many of them, as I say, were taught better. I'm going to now talk to you as adults, if I already haven't, and I hope again you will accept these things with an adult mind, and then on the Q&A, talk to me, question me if you will. The whites is a street slang for a term called leukorrhea. It is an issue, a secretion from the vaginal area which women sometimes suffer from. If the womb becomes catarrhal, has mucus, has a cold, the whites is one of the results. The inflammation of the uterine lining produces, in many cases, menstruation, and many things can cause that, as we shall talk about. The fluids lost in leukorrhea, or colloquial on the street, the whites, are important vital substances. Lipoids, alkaline lactates, natural sodium, potassium, calcium, plus brain and nerve foods in the form of lecithin. In fact, the mucous corpuscles present in leukorrhea are presently hemoglobin capable. What do I mean by that? It means that they are capable of forming human blood-carrying, oxygenating corpuscles. So not only does a woman then suffer the menses, but if she also has leukorrhea, she is constantly losing the ability to build life-giving blood cells, which anyone knows without that the body does what? Deteriorates. Some women are on a constant menses. And then you wonder why some women are very irritable, very agitative, anemic. They get dizzy and have migraine headaches and jump at the sound of a firecracker 20 miles away, which they think they can hear. If anyone suffered that kind of loss from puberty till death, I wonder again why women are not half crazy. There are some men and other women that say they are. I didn't say it. I say, faced with that loss, we could have a problem. I state that if the menses was cessated, if it stopped, if the blood loss and even the alkaline lipase loss was ceased and stopped, then not only would women be very strong, and they wouldn't be intuitive, they would be psychic, but they also could give birth to babies without a man being anywhere around. And there is the key to your problem and your problematic solution. You've bought into the coats lie, the white coats lie, the medical doctor's lie, which came about under a patriarchal system. If you start understanding the cadavers that were messed with in England and France at the turn of the 17th, 18th century, and experimentation still goes on. In fact, they, by law, are given under the caduceus the right to practice. And the practice is upon, in many cases, you as females. There was a theory called the Ovist theory, spelled O-V-I-S-T, pronounced Ah. It was proven, not postulated, I repeat, proven by Professor Jacques Loeb of Stanford University that the embryo develops from the egg alone and does not require spermatozoon. Did you hear what I just stated? According to Professor Loeb, you can make a developing embryo to become mitigated and go into first, second, and third trimesters of birth without the need of the male sperm, under certain circumstances. The prevailing medical theory is one of epigenesis, and it says, again, that you must have the union of sperm and egg in order to produce and in order to get pregnant. Maybe. To start this and give it practicality, we have to go back to a basic concept that some people still are not sure about. I state that women had to have been created before men, or formed before man, because you cannot get a man from a man, you cannot get a woman from a man, but you can get a man from a woman, and you can get a woman from a woman, and think about that. Any problem with that statement, that compound complex sentence? I don't have one. This is what the old church, the Church of England, and under King Constantine and the Bishop Eusebius, the Church of Rome, had to get rid of and had to change. The last honesty amongst Caucasian principalities dealing with Christianity, and especially Catholicism, came with the onset of the Greeks who broke away into the Greek Orthodox Church because they got tired of the lies that were being formed and wanted to continue with some semblance of